Hey guys, Matt from Pomelo Pictures here, and today we have a slightly different video because rather than me just setting the camera and rambling to you, I'm actually going to be in conversation with another YouTuber over the power of the internet, as Boogie298 would say. You may know him from his own YouTube channel, from channels he's appeared on like Metal Jesus Rocks, but I simply know him as Radical Reggie. Hey Reggie, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you doing,
I'm
Matt?
doing really good. Yeah, it's been difficult trying to find a time that would work for both of us with the time difference.
Yeah.
It's about 4:30 in the morning over here right now.
Woo!
So apologies to my followers if I'm looking a bit tired, but yeah, no, it was worth it to get you on the channel. Because what we were going to talk about today was collecting generally, but also sort of what some of the differences are, kind of collecting over here in the UK and Europe, and also over in the US, but also specifically for like Washington as well, because you guys have you're a little bit different to the rest of the US with the fact that you've got like Nintendo over there, you got
Right.
Microsoft, you've got the chance of
hmm
finding a few rare things over there is a little bit more than say over here. But for the purpose of my followers who don't know who you are, but to be honest, they're probably going to know who you are more than me. Did you want to just give yourself a brief intro of who you are?
Well, I am called Radical Reggie. I actually met my friend Jason when I was working at a retro game store. He walked in, we became friends immediately, and he always wanted me to be on his channel. So I think in around 2012, I finally agreed to go on a channel because I was kind of hesitant before because I was shy and everything like that. So once I was on his channel, people really started liking me, and they were asking, "Hey, does Reggie have his own channel?" And I kept getting pressured over the next couple of years. Hey, Reggie, start your own channel by fans and everything. So I did it, and here we are today, pretty much. So
Here we are.
right now with my channel, I'm starting out slow. I'm doing reviews and stuff like that, to get like kind of like a good like a I don't know like a good background
Hmm.
of a channel. Like somebody come check out my channel, find some obscure games that have a review on them, and then later on, I'm gonna start doing what everybody wants.
Hmm.
Top fives, top tens, hidden gems, all that. So that's the clickbait that everybody loves. So I'll start doing those eventually.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've got to find your own style of and ways of doing things before you start doing that kind of thing. Otherwise, why is anyone going to
Exactly.
bother watching you? Um, in
Exactly.
terms of collecting, I mean, how did you get started? I mean, was it sort of while you were in the army, before you were in the army, afterwards? Where did it all start for you?
Well, uh, I had a Super Nintendo and Nintendo back in the day. My parents had bought games for me for those systems. But when I got to high school, I kind of like fell off of video games, and then about a year into high school, my nephew introduced me to the PlayStation One
Mm,
system, and I love games with FMV.
yeah,
Like I remember playing the Sega CD, and I love that. But the PlayStation One really introduced me to FMV that I liked. I always thought FMV was good for games. Like an example of Resident Evil's FMV. Even though it was bad acting,
yeah,
it was
yeah.
awesome back in the day. We took it seriously as gamers. And after playing that game, I said I must have the system, and I fell in love with the PlayStation. And ever since then, I collected games for it. And my first two games, I got two games before I even bought the PlayStation. I had Mega Man X4 and Resident Evil Director's Cut, and I still have those games to this day. And the collection pretty much started from then on. I mean, I wasn't collecting much back in high school because I didn't have a lot of
Yeah,
money,
yeah,
but I kept everything I had, and it accumulated over time. When I got to the army, that was when I got my spending money. I was
yeah.
buying games all the time when they came out, like I wanted to, so which was awesome. So I was mostly a PlayStation guy and everything like that. But around 2011 or 2010, there was a prototype or a blueprint that came out for the Retron 5, and I saw that and I said, "Wow, a 5-in-1 system.
Mm,
Why not get some games for that system? It kind of defines each system." So I started hunting with friends for Super Nintendo games and Nintendo games and Genesis and stuff like that. And this was before it became a
yeah,
big
yeah,
trend
yeah.
like it is today. Like I don't know if you remember this, but years ago around that time, there was a news report saying that a retro game sold on eBay for $5,000.
Yeah.
That game was Stadium Events.
Mm,
And when saw that news report, they started, wow, maybe I have this game in my closet. Like maybe these old games are worth
mm.
something. So people started looking at their stuff differently. And luckily, I started collecting back then a little bit before it became a trend. But that's when I did most of my collecting, and it wasn't hard. Or I wasn't getting like like I wouldn't say I was getting like crazy expensive
Mm.
games, or anything like that. But you get a couple games a week, and it just accumulates and it starts adding up. And then
Yeah.
next thing you know, after a month, you got this stack of games, and that's part of your
Mm.
collection. So that's how I kind of accumulated games. I bought games for cheap because they were selling them for cheap at the time, and it's really just added on. And
Yeah.
you know,
Well, I mean that's the thing. I mean, a few years ago, it was really easy to get into. I mean, it's a little bit harder if you haven't started like getting into it now because the prices have just gone
yeah,
crazy. I mean, with me, it was I started when I turned about 20 because I had a few health problems in university, and I kind of just started buying all the games from my childhood because I was going on places like eBay, and you could get boxed complete Game Boy games for a few pounds. Now they'll be 30, 40 pounds. But so I wish I'd done more back then, but I kind of, when I, after I'd finished uni, I went to live in London for a bit, and the apartment I had was so small, you couldn't really accumulate that many things. And then when I got back into it a few years later, I was like, wow, the prices have gone up a lot since then.
oh yeah. People are treating games like they're jewels.
Yeah,
Or it's crazy though. I mean, it's not too late to collect certain stuff, but you have to know what areas to look into for certain games. Like a lot of
definitely.
people are always, of course, looking at Nintendo, Super Nintendo, N64. That's the main thing that a lot of people look
Yeah.
at, and those are going to be the more expensive ones. When I was started collecting, I was more into
Mm.
Genesis, and I looked at the other system that people weren't all crazy about. Like everybody was after Nintendo, Super Nintendo. I was going for Genesis, Game Boy stuff. People were stuff that people weren't looking at.
Yeah.
That's why I found a lot of stuff for cheap. So you really have to really think outside the box when you're collecting some stuff. When especially nowadays, uh, go for what everybody's not looking at. But nowadays, it seems like everybody's looking at everything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
Well,
so it's tough.
timing is everything on what console to go for, but that's what everybody's
Yeah.
thinking. So,
Oh yeah.
um,
Exactly.
so I mean, throughout the time that you've been collecting, and I guess also being a gamer, have you always been like Washington based?
No. I'm actually from
Oh, right.
California.
Okay.
I moved up here in 2004 after I got out of the military. Uh, yeah, I got out of the military. I think it was in August of 2004, and a couple months later, I moved up here. And the reason I moved up here was because my brother said, "Hey, my brother was up
Mm.
here, and he said it was a nice place to live." So a fresh start after the military, and everything like that. California was getting really expensive
Mm.
and stuff like that. So. Uh, yeah, I moved up here, started going to school, and was still collecting PS2 was still a popular
Mm.
trend back then. So, but I wouldn't really call myself a collector when I first moved up
Yeah.
here. I was just buying PlayStation games, stuff like that. I wasn't going all around and getting other systems. But yeah,
Yeah, I think there's definitely a point where you have quite a big collection, but you don't necessarily call yourself a collector. Um, but then there's a point where it switches and I go, oh, okay, I think I am now.
well, yeah. You don't mean to become a
No,
collector, but you're a gamer that acquires a collection of games. If that makes
yeah, yeah,
sense. You
yeah,
know what I mean?
definitely.
Like. I'm not the type of person that wanted to have every game
No.
that exists or anything. I've always went after games that I liked, and over time, I have accidentally chose games. I bought games that I thought would be cool, but when I played them, I didn't like them, and they became worth money. I ended up getting rid of them
Mm.
because what defines my collection is that if you go on my collection, you grab any game out of there, and it's a game you can play all
Yeah.
night. It's fun. Um,
Well,
that's kind of how I define my collection.
I think
Uh,
that's the best way to look at it as well, because I mean, there's no point like collecting games just for the sake of owning them. Um,
Yeah, a lot of people that I've seen, not all people,
no,
I'll
no,
say
no.
some people, but some people collect games just to feel like they want to be in the in
Yeah,
crowd, like they want to be like important or yeah, I got this rare game now. Hey, everybody look at
yeah,
me. It's not about
or they'll
that. You
give up
gotta you
games
gotta
that they want to own just because there's that one expensive game that they can just about afford. Or it's kind of like, well, all these games you wanted to play, you haven't bought because you've bought this one expensive game, which is just sitting on a
yeah.
shelf because it's sometimes it's not even a good game.
It's not. A lot of them are, and it's just that there were limited
Yeah,
quantities of it because nobody bought it, and that's the game you want to have on your shelf. I mean, it's going to go on your shelf. You're not going to play it. I mean, think of like stadium
yeah, yeah.
events. Like, is that a good
No,
game? I mean, like, is that something that everybody thinks
definitely
that?
not.
It seemed all right in the beginning when you use it with the power
Yeah,
pad, but it's not anything. Hey, let's play stadium
no.
events. No way. Uh, So
It is
yeah,
just it's a status symbol to own the game, and that's about it.
yeah, pretty much. Uh, but with my collection and everything, I these days I've been collecting. Well, been acquiring games
Yeah.
for well, when I really started acquiring, like about
Mm.
2010, for all different systems. Nowadays, I've kind of slowed down because first of all, my game room is packed, so
Yeah.
I don't want to fill it up. I always try to keep myself to a limit. Like I want to keep all my games in the game
Yeah.
room. If I start venturing out
Yeah.
and filling them around my apartment, then that's bad. So what I've slowed down on is a lot of limited edition box
Yeah.
sets. Unless it's worth
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
good box. It has to be good because a lot of people today think a limited edition is awesome because it's limited edition or whatever, but it's really just a downloadable
Yeah.
code in there, some other paper, and it's just cheap.
Yes,
You know what I mean? You
it
gotta
always
look at that
gets me
stuff.
when they have a steel book, and inside the steel book is a little piece of paper with a download code. There's not even a disc.
Yeah, yeah, that doesn't make any sense. If we're getting a limited edition, first of all, if you're paying that, you should have the DLC first before anybody has it, or whatever in there. You should have to wait a couple of months later. Like that's just not right. And it's sad because a lot of people today, well, I'm not gonna. It's a lot of younger
Yeah.
adults that are doing it. Like they don't care. I'll pay DLC. I'll throw my money at it because they're not really buying it. Their parents are paying it for it or whatever. Or it's just, and business practices are looking at that and say, oh yeah, these people will buy anything,
Yeah.
and this is why they continue to do it. Uh, I don't know if you saw a video I did about why I don't buy new
Yeah.
games
Yeah. Yeah.
anymore, and the reason is because they'll release the game and they'll talk about season pass, and that is the wrong way to
Yeah.
go when
Well,
you start talk about a game.
games are
And
sort of a service now rather than a product.
oh yeah, definitely. And if you wait like 9 months later for the game, I mean not for the game, but when a game comes out, if you wait a few months, they'll release a game of the year edition or a complete edition of the game, like
Yeah.
Injustice. I waited for that game, and they made a complete version of it with the DLC on the
Yeah.
disc. We don't know what's going to happen with DLC for certain services in the future.
No.
A lot of stuff has already become unavailable.
Yeah.
And it sucks. That's why I'm not a DLC type person. It's a cool option if they create it separately from the game, like they're doing with you heard of Horizon
Yeah.
Zero
Yeah.
Dawn? They're making DLC for that game wasn't planned for the game. They're just releasing it.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
making it because the game did so well, and that's awesome. I think that's
That's
cool
fun.
DLC.
Yeah.
But like, here's an example, like DLC, like Resident Evil 7, that DLC, that season
Mm.
pass, uh, those episodes or whatever the videotapes, lost footage, banned
Yeah.
footage, that should have been on the disc, available from the beginning.
But
And
that's the argument for, I mean, owning physical copies of the game, and I think that's why some people like retro rather than modern game, because even if you these days, if you have the disc, you have the physical copy, a lot of the time, a lot of the content isn't on there anyway, especially if the game is released broken, and then you have to download patch.
Street Fighter 5.
Well, there's we could list a lot of games like that, but
Yeah.
it's kind of like, well, it's nice to own the physical copy then, but the actual physical copy is almost useless. But that's why some people
Yeah.
like retro.
Retro, I mean, you feel it. I mean, retro, they weren't doing that back then. You're getting a complete package, which is a nice feeling. Today, I mean, times are tougher than what they were years ago. When people would come home from work and maybe go out to the club and relax. A lot of people are stressing these days. So because stuff is so expensive, like gas prices are so high. Back in the day, everybody didn't have to worry about going to a friend's house and how much gas it would cost to get over there or how much it would last them for the week and everything. So when you buy a game, you want to feel like it was worth the money. You know what I mean?
And you want to feel like you got the complete product as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well said. And I'm very careful on what I buy these days. I end up purchasing a lot of indie games now because I feel those games are complete.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in terms of like Washington, because you guys are a little bit different, you've got Nintendo of America based there, you've got Microsoft based there. Do you tend to see things that you wouldn't necessarily see throughout the US? I know like a few of your friends you found like prototype Xboxes, prototype N64s, all sorts of things.
Oh my gosh. we've seen well, I seen a prototype N64. I actually did a video with my buddy that on one he found in Portland, and it's about an hour
Yeah,
away
yeah.
from where I live here in Washington. My buddy Jason found he found the N64 disk
Yeah.
drive,
The US version.
uh, the US
Yeah.
version. There's four of them. He found the number one of it, which was awesome. And another guy found a rare prototype of the Xbox.
Was that the Orange Halo
Uh,
one? Was it?
the Orange Halo one, yeah, he found that, and I've seen other like developer Xboxes and stuff like that. I've seen them all the time. We used to actually find those at Goodwills all
Yeah.
the time, everything like that. But before the trend became really popular, you don't really see that type of
No.
stuff too much anymore. You still will, depending on where you live, but you would see a lot of more of that stuff here in Washington more than other places, I would think, because the employees uh, usually have garage sales and
Yeah.
stuff like that to the public, and that's how that stuff is acquired through people. It's just really somewhat common, I would say. Not common, but common in the community.
Yeah, more
If that
common.
makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah. Because I think some people have this sort of romantic vision of somewhere in Nintendo there's an archive filled with sealed games and consoles and things, and that might be the case in the US. I don't know, but I mean, I worked for Sega here in the UK, which was the Sega of Europe office, and when
Right.
Sega of America closed down, we got a lot of their archive stuff over in our office. And it was basically just paperwork. Like there was nothing interesting. Like I'm sure maybe somewhere there's a vault in California with like sealed copies of Sonic the Hedgehog or something. But it was kind of like I remember walking into the archives and it was literally just paperwork of Bomberman, Saturn Bomberman, and things. And it's just
Oh wow.
it's not quite as interesting as finding like prototype consoles. I was kind of disappointed there was. The one thing that there was it'd come over in a case from the US. It was kind of like I don't even know what it's like, beefaroni, Sonic the Hedgehog beefaroni or something, like 25-year-old Sonic the Hedgehog
Like
branded macaroni and cheese and things.
Wow, dude.
That's about as exciting as it got.
Oh wow, dude. You know, as weird as it is over here, even today, even though like I said, everything's really popular. If you go out and hunt, like maybe like at least 3 times, maybe 2 or 3 times a week at least, you'll probably find something like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a lot of that stuff here, and it's just a lot of people don't know what it is still. You know what I mean? But I think Washington is definitely one of the more popular states because Nintendo and Microsoft are here.
But I think that's also a US thing. I mean, like for example, we don't really have yard sales.
Oh, really?
Well, I think it's kind of. I mean, not all American cities and states, but you guys tend to have like your cities or your sort of living areas laid out in grids. So if you're going down a street, you could quite easily see somebody having a yard sale. In Europe, they tend to be everything was just sort of dotted all over the place, and it's kind of like if you could have a little yard sale and no one would know about it.
Oh wow!
I mean, we would say like a flea market is a car boot sale. There'd be places that have that, but generally speaking, the like the oldest that you would find is like Xbox 360, Wii, maybe some Sega Mega Drive,
Oh wow!
and maybe some Game Boy Advance. Generally, they don't turn up. And also, we don't have Craigslist. I mean, we do, but nobody really uses it.
Oh wow.
So your options for going out in the wild
are a lot higher.
And we're kind of restricted to eBay, which is not the best option because
Right. I totally
that's where everybody looks.
Yeah, and you're right because a lot of my friends now that summer's almost here, they're going out and because sun's coming out, people are doing yard sales and garage sales, and they're finding a lot of games. I see friends posting in my group all the time like, oh, went to a yard sale, got all this stuff on the cheap. It's that time of season, and it's just a lot of people are acquiring their games like that.
I get very jealous when I see videos like that.
It's crazy. I know, man. It's my buddy, one of my good friends, Joshua. He has a channel, Retro Gaming Maniac. He went to a yard sale. He filmed it too. He got 2 PSPs, N64, Super Nintendos from this guy, and the guy wanted in games, and the guy wanted $20 for it. And I was like, whoa, dude, like, man, I cannot believe you found all that, man. He almost had a heart attack because he was so excited, But what I'm trying to say is that stuff like the people think that kind of stuff won't happen anymore because everything is so popular. But you can still go out
there's still stuff in people's basements and things that they've forgotten that they have.
Yeah, exactly. You know what tripped me out? Jason did a video. We did a video, a pickups video, and he told me he went into I forgot where he went to. It was an hour away from his house. Some lady was selling some games, some PC games. He loves collecting PC
Mm.
games, and he looked and she had Super Nintendo games in box sealed, and she had a lot of the stuff was wasn't in great condition. Some of it was, but this lady was burning the stuff because she didn't know what to do with it,
Oh
burning
wow,
it.
just
You know what I mean? Like,
destroyed. Yeah.
yeah. And it makes me think that maybe a lot of people did stuff like that, and that's why a lot of the stuff is hard to find these days. You know, not only are people keeping their stuff because they want it in their
Mm.
collection, but a lot of that stuff was thrown away or destroyed, which sucks. So
Well, I mean, that was definitely the case with Nintendo, particularly because I mean, like NES, Super Nintendo, Game Boy, all the boxes people tended to throw away. I mean,
yeah,
Game Boy was my system, and we used to throw the boxes away because, well, I mean, first of all, they get beaten up anyway,
yeah,
but nobody really thought, well, I'll keep the box. Whereas with sort of Sega Mega Drive upwards with the plastic cases, it's so much easier to find one of those sort of complete in box,
right.
which I guess is why getting complete in box Nintendo games has kind of become the collectible thing because I guess it's harder to do.
Could you imagine if Nintendo had went with clamshell cases for stuff? How much more
It's
stuff we would
something.
still see today?
It's something I never really understood because I mean, because we had the US style NES in Europe, and that I mean that was designed to look a bit like a VCR,
Right,
and
right.
then you had the big cartridges, even though the ROM boards inside were quite small. But
Hmm.
then they came out with cardboard boxes, and I never really understood if you're trying to go for looking like a VCR and an entertainment system thing, why would you not go with like VCR cases?
I don't know, man. Nintendo, for what reason? I mean, I think Nintendo just they don't care when it comes to American people, man. They think we'll buy anything, and unfortunately, that's the case with a lot of stuff. I mean, a lot of stuff that is Nintendo. Like, uh, I tell all my friends this. You know, when Nintendo came out with the Wii U, and stuff like that, you know, if they didn't have a blockbuster game on it, you know, or whatever that was selling, guess what they would do? They would they would make they would bring out a new 3DS in a different color. Everybody would
Yeah.
lose their mind over our new Pokemon game. Everybody would go crazy. You know, it just they could do so many different things that people would just buy their items. You know, it just
Hmm.
I
Well, I
mean,
mean
you
that
already
we still see that now with like the new 2DS. It's
yeah,
sort
yeah.
of
And that's where how Nintendo's got a lot of these people, which is it's sad. I feel like a lot of people are indoctrinated with Nintendo. I'm not. I mean, I see right through that stuff, but you know, a lot of people don't, unfortunately. So that's where Nintendo, by them having that power over people, they know they
yeah,
can do whatever they want, and that's why there's
yeah,
no what's the word I'm looking for? Like they're not really too creative when it comes to stuff besides their own first party uh, games, or I
yeah,
don't know. Maybe I'm just throwing it out there. I mean, I just that's how I feel about them, and that's why I'm not
yeah,
really a
yeah,
Nintendo guy. Like even at E3 this year, they came out with they announced a new Metroid 4 Prime, right?
yeah, yeah. I just saw that. Yeah,
But what have people been asking them for? A 2D
hmm.
Metroid. Please give us a
Yeah.
2D Metroid, and they ignore them. You know what I mean? Like it's, dude, it.
Well, I mean, at least now we're going to get a 3DS version of it. We've got but I didn't quite see the E3, but it seemed to be a remake of Metroid 2 for the Game Boy, but a 3DS version or a reimagining of it, which
Yeah,
kind of makes sense why they sort of jumped all over the another Metroid 2 remake that got released last year. It's kind of if they had their own one in the works.
yeah, yeah. That's what I was thinking too. I mean, I found more joy from the the Metroid 2 remake that was released for the
Yeah,
PC. You know, that game was awesome. Oh my god.
yeah.
But
Yeah, well, I mean, when that came out, I was still working for Sega, but the guy I sat next to was he used to do localization for Nintendo of America, so he did like translating of like Kirby games from Japanese into English and things. And the day that it got released, he came into the office like, "Download it now because Nintendo is going to be all over
yeah,
this." And
they
it's sort of like
they
within a
were
few days, it was gone.
yeah, it was. They were on it the next day, which was shocking because that means that they saw how good it was. Usually,
Yeah,
you don't really see them pay attention to stuff like that.
it usually takes a few weeks, if not
Yeah,
more. With that one, it was days.
days, and you know, you would think Nintendo they would see what that guy did. He worked on that game for 6 years.
Yeah.
You think they want to hire him, for making something like that? That's awesome, but no.
Which is actually one thing that Sega do, because Sonic Mania right now is being developed by the guys that were making, like 10 years ago they were making hacked Sonic games. 5 years ago they were making the mobile versions, and now they're making Sonic Mania.
Right.
And you'd kind of wish you could see that progression with Nintendo, or not just Nintendo, but other games consoles as well. But you just don't tend to see that.
It's very smart for Sega to do that, because to be honest with you today, fans of games of the old days are going to make the best games of today. I mean, because they love it so
definitely.
much.
Especially if they're making something that it has a retro feel to it.
Yeah, because I look at Sonic Mania and I looked at gameplay for it, and I automatically saw like stuff from Sonic CD that I love. With Sonic CD is my favorite Sonic game.
Yeah.
And it just looks fantastic. It's very impressive. I mean, that's what a lot of companies should do, is hire these fans who are dedicated and want to remake these games again. People love the Mega Man games. Capcom's not making any new Mega Man games, so why not hire somebody who can make a good Mega Man game? To keep the series going.
And there's people out there making hacked games that could do it.
Yeah, exactly. Sonic Mania, that's a good one to talk about. I can't wait till that comes out. It got delayed, didn't it, for a little bit?
I think it was initially meant to come out in June, because we had the first sort of demo of it, which was a couple levels at PAX West last year. But that was literally like 2 levels, and then it was meant to be.
Yeah, you can run through those levels fast.
Yeah, pretty much.
What was I gonna say? Sonic Mania. I wanted to get it so bad, but then I saw how they were releasing it. They were releasing it in a limited edition with a little Genesis and Sonic on top. But it's a download code. How hard would it have been to make a disc?
Well, I mean, they even teased it with they had a Mega Drive or Genesis cartridge, but inside was just a Sonic ring. There was no. But anyway.
Yeah.
But we're about coming up to the end of part 1.
Okay.
So I'm just going to say my goodbyes to people on the camera here. And if you want to watch part 2, we will either get it on my channel or Reggie's, but I'll put a link in the description below. Please like and subscribe, and to me and to Reggie too, and we'll see you in part 2. A massive thank you to Reggie for chatting with me. This is the first time I've tried to film a live cross-continent chat over the internet, and clearly there's a few things to improve upon for next time, but I'll put that partly down to it being the middle of the night here. You can catch part 2 over on Reggie's channel, where I'm actually in focus this time. Please like and subscribe to both our channels, and we'll see you in the next one.